Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amit Harari, and just before we start, I'd like to invite you to check out our new and improved website where you can find all of our latest content and events from the heart of the State of Israel. So please check it out and subscribe to ILTV.tv. And now, coming up in today's newscasts. Netanyahu pledges to serve everyone and uphold the so-called status quo while at the same time advancing controversial legislation. Meantime, the Mossad publishing new details on Israel's most wanted and legendary spy. And finally, a potential solution for the chicken industry, jungle-fowl genocide. The so-called legislative blitz now in swing in Jerusalem as the coming coalition advances several key bills. ILTV Aaron Poor is reporting.
Within hours of swapping the Knesset Speaker, Israel's incoming coalition advancing 4 key bills through preliminary votes and taking one more giant leap towards assuming office. The legislation seen as a precondition for agreeing to form a government. But several of the bills seen as highly controversial, with some coalition members even voting against. Not least because some of them change Israeli basic law for what critics say amount to personal politics or ideology, and not one passing with more than a slim 52% majority. The first, expanding the authority of the power over police in order to establish the National Security Ministry for Otzma Yehudit head Itamar Ben-Gvir. The second, empowering an MK from the religious Zionism party, most likely incoming Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, to helm an independent office in the Defense Ministry in control of building in Judea and Samaria. Then the third allows those serving suspended sentences, like Shas leader Aryeh Deri, to serve not only as a minister, but to control 3 ministries. And the fourth, a bill that would more heavily sanction an MK for leaving their faction. Temporary Speaker Yariv Levin saying he wants to finalize all 4 laws by next week. Meantime, critics also calling out the coming coalition for its reported acquiescence to religious demands. This after an unsourced and so far unverified report on Israeli news alleging extreme demands within coalition agreements from the United Torah Judaism Party. Demands including the expansion of religious gender-segregated beachfronts, gender-segregated public events and spaces including buses and even libraries, a ban on mixed-gender prayer at the Kotel or the Western Wall, even in the egalitarian space, and a ban on energy production on the Sabbath. But Prime Minister-designate Benjamin Netanyahu dismissing such concerns and pledging to maintain the status quo.
אני רוצה להרגיע אתכם, אולי זה ירגיע אתכם, אולי לא תצעקו כל כך הרבה. יש ויהיה חשמל בשבת, יש ויהיו חופי רחצה לכולם. אנחנו נשמור על הסטטוס קוו, איש באמונתו יחיה, לא תהיה פה מדינת הלכה. תהיה פה מדינה שבה נדאג לכל אזרחי ישראל בלי יוצא מן הכלל. נבחרנו להוביל בדרך שלנו, דרך של הימין הלאומי ודרך של הימין הליברלי, וכך נעשה. תודה רבה לכם.
And now with more on politics is founder and CEO of Yad LaOlim and former MK, Rabbi Dov Lipman. Hi, Dov.
Hi, Amit. Nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you. So Netanyahu again trying to calm voters down by saying he'll keep the religious status quo in check. But again, can citizens rely on his word?
So I'm here at the Knesset today, and the tension is palpable. You can feel it in the cafeteria. You can feel it in the meeting rooms. There definitely is a fear amongst the opposition parties of a massive shift that's going to be taking place. I will tell you that amongst the coalition partners, they say they don't have any intention on trying to impede on the lives of anyone who lives a secular lifestyle, but they're trying to improve the lives or even give certain benefits to the religious who are living a religious lifestyle, but not at the expense of anyone else. So Netanyahu certainly understands that he can't allow things to go too far to the extreme. And the moment anything starts to interfere with the secular Israel's personal lives, the damage will be so great that it actually will make it very difficult to govern. So I think all in all, in the end, he's trying to find a way to pacify the religious parties, to bring them on board while not interfering too much with the life of anyone else in Israel.
Now, the Knesset also has a new Likud speaker, Yariv Levin. He's in a marathon effort to pass several laws that make it possible to meet all of the coalition agreements. Is that a normal situation?
It's not a normal situation at all. The fact that we've gone way over a month since the election and the incoming government was not able to put in its own speaker is extremely unusual. It happens immediately and enables them to begin to start a legislative process of some kind. And now Netanyahu has less than a week till his mandate to form a government runs out to pass through these areas of legislation. The members are going to be here in committee rooms like I'm in right now till early hours of the morning. They'll be sleeping here. In the end, the coalition is capable of doing whatever it wants to do, but it's going to be requiring day after day of all-nighters to be able to get it done. And the opposition will obviously do whatever it can to delay it, to try to stop it from happening by the time the mandate runs out. But if you're asking me, in the end, will they succeed? They will succeed in this building. The next step, though, will be challenges to these laws that will be made in the courts. And that's going to happen the moment these laws go to their final votes.
My question was definitely if you see it succeeding. And now incoming Interior Minister Aryeh Deri is Shas leader and he's central to the coalition, but he also has a conviction and suspended sentence for tax evasion. Isn't it crucial that he be allowed to serve?
There's no possible way that he's going to allow this government to be formed if he is not a minister. And like you mentioned, he's going to be a minister with tremendous powers over numerous different areas of Israeli life. That is going to be one of the laws which will absolutely be challenged in court, because the current law seems to be very clear that a person has to wait 7 years following a conviction of this kind in order to serve as a minister. There's no doubt there are many Israelis who are very wary in general of someone who has been found guilty and plea bargain of corruption charges being in charge of all of these budgets and areas of Israeli life. But if you're asking me, is it necessary for them to pass this law to form the government? The answer is yes. It is absolutely a precondition from Shas. It will be challenged in court. Again, this is another area where I do believe they'll find a way to get through it. It just might be some judicial obstacles along the way.
He also has a tremendous amount of supporters, so I assume that's also a factor.
Well, one of the arguments that the coalition is making is this was a democratic election and 64 mandates chose this. And the Shas party received 11 seats. And what right does anyone have to dismiss the right of the voter? And that's why it comes down to a legal question of what does the law say? We're not getting into a moral argument here, but it's the law. And that's why they do have the opportunity as a governing coalition to change a legislation. Many people say, but you're making personal legislation as a precondition to a new government. That should not be allowed. But at the end, you are correct. There was a democratically elected government. They have a majority. The coalition can scream. They can make it difficult. But when it's all said and done, this incoming coalition can do whatever it chooses to do. And the courts will have a difficult time intervening with that.
Yes, and I'd like to get one more question in. Otzma Yehudit leader Itamar Ben-Gvir is taking over the new Ministry of National Security, and with expanded powers of the border police and apparently added control over the police, maybe he can make a real change for the better. Doesn't that make sense?
There's no doubt that one of the mandates this government has is hundreds of thousands of people who said we don't feel safe, and we trust Ben-Gvir specifically to be the one to make order. And that is the argument that this coalition is making. There was a fascinating committee hearing today where the chief of police was there as well, and he said we cannot have a situation where a minister is the one who's calling all the shots, and I just have to say yes to whatever he demands. I do believe that the two of them can come to a working agreement. I will also tell you, many police officers are looking forward to some of the changes that Ben-Gvir wants to make, including enabling them to engage with potential terrorists, criminals, when they're in acts against the people of Israel. And they do look forward to perhaps greater salaries, more police force. So on the one hand, people are saying we can't give this minister all this control. On the other hand, there does seem to be a mandate from the population of Israel saying we specifically want them to have this control and we want changes to be made so that we can have greater security in the streets of Israel.
Rabbi Dov Lipman, continue enjoying at the Knesset. Seems very enjoyable there now.
Definitely entertaining, a lot of popcorn, a lot of hours here. Hopefully in the end, we'll just have a functional, good, stable government that will make things better for all the people of Israel.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Now, cabinet ministers and Knesset members from the outgoing government coalition holding an emergency conference yesterday warning against proposed changes to the law of return. Members of the incoming coalition from the religious and ultra-Orthodox parties indicating that they want to make changes to the law, which is the basis of the Jewish immigration from the diaspora. For one, the religious parties wanting to cancel the so-called grandfather clause, in the law which guarantees citizenship to anyone with at least one Jewish grandparent. Similarly, the religious lawmakers pushing for stricter qualifications for converts and children born interfaith parents. But the potential change has been fiercely denounced by members of both sides in Knesset, as well as by the heads of the Jewish Agency and leaders of the major world Jewish organizations who warn of the irreparable damage to Israel's ties with Jewish communities abroad. Now, the Shin Bet security agency says that 27 Israeli civilians and foreign visitors were killed this year in terror attacks. As we approach the year's end, 2022 is shaping up as the bloodiest in recent years. ILTV Steve Leibovitz reports.
The second half of 2022 is marked by a series of terror attacks and near nightly clashes between Israeli security forces and Palestinian gunmen aimed at preventing attacks on Israelis. The Tel Aviv area led in terror fatalities with 9. 4 were killed in several attacks in Jerusalem, 4 in Beersheba, and 2 in the coastal city of Hadera. 12 were killed in Judea and Samaria. 3 soldiers were killed in attacks directed at troops, and a police commander was killed by a Palestinian gunman during a West Bank security operation. Some 129 Israelis were seriously wounded in these and other terrorist attacks this year. The security service says that most of the terrorists came from the Palestinian Authority cities of Nablus and Jenin, where the IDF has focused most of its anti-terror efforts. The PA reports 167 Palestinian deaths resulting from Israeli gunfire, making it the deadliest year since 2006. The vast majority of the Palestinians killed were armed and were carrying out or planning to carry out attacks. Several bystanders were killed, including Al Jazeera reporter Shireen Abu Akleh, and Palestinian teen Jana Sakarna was mistakenly targeted just this past Sunday. The IDF's Operation Break the Wave has arrested more than 2,500 Palestinian combatants and foiled about 500 potential terror attacks. The last time Israel faced this level of terror was in 2015, when 29 Israelis were killed.
In a bid to forge stronger ties and maybe even to gain some protection, Taiwanese Foreign Minister Joseph Wu extolling the common values that link Israel and Taiwan together. Aaron Pours with more.
Speaking in an exclusive interview with Israeli Ynet News, Taiwanese Foreign Minister Joseph Wu saying that he has high hopes that Israel and Taiwan will develop closer ties. This in light of the two countries' shared values and democratic free market ideals. But more importantly, Wu saying that he hopes Israel can play a more active role in exposing the threat against his country posed by China. Wu saying, quote, "The greatest threat is that China wants to cut off Taiwan's international network. So whenever the Israelis say something about Taiwan or interview me, the Chinese come down very hard on the Israelis. The purpose or objective being to cut off Taiwan from international support or connections." China, for its part, making it clear that it views the tech powerhouse of Taiwan as a dissident part of its communist regime. Taiwan, meantime, viewing itself as an independent democratic entity.
Joining us now to elaborate on the connections between Israel and Taiwan, China expert and adjunct lecturer from the Lauder School of Government, Diplomacy and Strategy at Reichman University, Alexander Prevsner. Hi, Alexander.
Hello, good to be with you.
So Taiwan's foreign minister says Israelis have already come under pressure from Beijing for speaking out against the communist regime. What example of this sticks out in your mind most?
Well, Israel, like most countries in the world, like the US as well, maintains the one China policy, meaning it recognizes China as a representative of all of China. And Israel, like most countries, has a representative office on Taiwan. Now, Taiwan is an issue, kind of an unresolved issue from the Chinese Civil War, basically. And it's a major bone of contention in the relationship between US and China. So we see whenever the relationship between the US and China deteriorates, it is Taiwan that pays the price because China increases pressure on Taiwan. The most obvious example was in August when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan in a step that China interpreted as violating the aforesaid one China policy and reacted harshly. In terms of interviews, there was an interview in the summer, I think, that Joseph Wu, Taiwan's foreign minister, gave to Jerusalem Post. And then the Chinese embassy demanded from the Jerusalem Post to take it down or something like that. So for sure you see China pressuring Taiwan, but again, it's not in a vacuum. You have to see the bigger picture of U.S.-China ties.
And I'm just following up on this. How much damage could China actually deal if it were serious about punishing Israel for some reason?
Well, I think before punishing Israel, China would probably first punish the U.S. Or Taiwan itself, like I said. Since the difficulties between U.S. and China in many areas, including Taiwan, we saw Biden and Chinese President Xi meet in Bali at the G20 summit in November, where President Biden reiterated that U.S. sticks to one China policy, and then President Xi of China said that Taiwan is the core issue for China and the core issue of U.S.-China relations, which is true from their perspective. So I don't know if Israel necessarily has to get ahead of the pack, but in terms of China can register a diplomatic démarche. China can throw in even more support behind the Palestinian cause in the United Nations, in the Security Council, et cetera, et cetera. But we are very far from that. You have to understand that, and of course, Taiwan Foreign Minister Joseph Wu does what he has to do, and that's drum up support from Taiwan. But like I said, Israel has always maintained a one-China policy, unlike the U.S. that swung back and forth between the Republic of China on Taiwan and then the People's Republic of China. Israel has always maintained a one-China policy and has always maintained a relationship with Taiwan that is non-political.
Alexander Prevsner, very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, we all remember Eli Cohen, Israel's bravest and most famous spy caught by the Syrians in 1965 until the start of this week. Everyone debating why and how he was caught, a debate becoming much clearer right now.
A new breakthrough in Israel's most famous and incredible spy story. While participating in a ceremony of the Eli Cohen National Museum in Herzliya, head of the Mossad, Dadi Barnea, revealing for the first time the last telegram received from Cohen as a free man before his capture 57 years ago.
אלי כהן נתפס רק בגלל ששידוריו נקלטו על ידי האויב. פשוט נקלטו והוקנו. מעכשיו זאת ידיעה מודיעינית. גם ידוע שאלי כהן המשיך להחזיק בכיסוי שלו במשך זמן רב גם אחרי תפיסתו. המשיך לעמוד בגב זקוף מול חוקריו. המשיך לשמור על כבודו, על שמו, על כבוד המוסד, על כבוד המדינה עד לרגעיו האחרונים.
Providing the Mossad with crucial intelligence regarding important Syrian officials and armaments in the early 1960s, the question of what led to Cohen's capture debated for years, between Cohen's handlers pushing him too hard and Cohen himself taking too many risks. But in the newly released cable dating to the day of Cohen's supposed capture on January 19, 1965, Barnea demonstrating that none were to blame and that even the best spies occasionally fall victim to an enemy's tenacious intelligence. In the telegram, Cohen reporting a meeting with the Syrian General Staff the day before with the then Syrian President Amin al-Hafiz. Meantime, Eli Cohen's widow, Nadia, also present at the event, having a hard time hiding her excitement.
אלי כרגע הוא מרחף מעלינו, הוא רואה את הכל, שומע את הכל, ואני חולמת עדיין עליו.
Finally, the Mossad releasing a statement saying that they will continue to act to bring new information and details about Eli Cohen's service in Syria, while continuing to act to bury his bones in Israel. To this day, Cohen's body hidden in Syria.
Following in the footsteps of several other nations, Czech President Miloš Zeman now saying he wants to move his country's embassy to Jerusalem in the coming months. Zeman is due to end his term in the office in March 2023, and he's asking for Parliament to approve the move before he leaves office. He also wants to attend the grand opening. While the previous prime minister opposed the move, the current president believes that his government will give its approval. Zeman is outspokenly pro-Israel and wants the embassy to move to be part of the legacy. Likewise, current Czech Prime Minister Fiala previously supporting an embassy move when he was an opposition parliament member. The main obstacle then likely from the European Union, which is strongly opposed to the embassy move as being potentially harmful to the peace process with the Palestinians. As the excitement rises ahead of the final matches at the World Cup in Qatar, Jews and Arabs, Israelis and Palestinians uniting between the underdog Morocco. And joining us now with more on the phenomenon live from Morocco is analyst and soccer fan Amin Ayoub. Hi, Amin.
Hi, how you doing?
So Morocco will be trying to make history tonight and win over France and play Argentina at the World Cup final as the first Arab team ever. And as far as I know, Morocco isn't really a football nation. It's a $1 million question, but how did they manage to do that actually, to get so far?
Well, soccer is actually a national sport in Morocco. And Morocco won the 1976 African Cup of Nations and many other African nations championships. It's also won the FIFA Arab Cup once, and it's participated in 6 World Cups before. So Morocco is actually a nation of soccer.
Still agree with me that this is like the furthest they ever got?
Yeah, they did.
Yes.
And the Moroccans and the Moroccan fans are very happy about this.
So really something nice to experience before the Moroccan fans is Israelis and Palestinians uniting over support of the Moroccan team, despite seeing many Palestinian flags being raised in Qatar by Moroccan fans. Where do you see all this support coming from? I mean, is it the classic David and Goliath thing or maybe something else?
Well, it is a classic David and Goliath thing because those are incidences that happen all the time. Even when we have social demonstrations sometimes in Morocco, they would raise the Palestinian flag. So the Palestinian flag is everywhere. This is like a historical connection between Morocco and Palestine.
And what can you tell us? You already spoke about a little bit about the atmosphere in Morocco these past weeks. We mainly saw visuals from Belgium and other European countries. What's the atmosphere like? Moroccan fans, tourists in Morocco?
The Moroccan fans are actually, streets are full of people after the games, even before the games, and people are very happy about Morocco and their team.
That's very nice. So we're wishing lots of luck to Morocco tonight. And Amin Ayoub, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So it's all about genetic engineering and some good news for animal lovers waging a war for many years against the cruel destruction of billions of male chicks around the world. A novel development by the Poultry NRS company in collaboration with the Volcani Institute, the Agricultural Research Administration of the State of Israel, resulting in the hatching of the first chicks in the world with all the eggs they lay, hatching only females. This being no less than historical in the global poultry industry, as every year approximately 7 billion male chicks are destroyed worldwide due to their inability of laying eggs. The scope of the global laying market is estimated at about 8 billion hens, laying around 2 trillion eggs every year. And in recent years, there have been growing demand in solving the male chicks issue. This with the French government declaring that starting in 2022, they will start banning the killing of male chicks on its territory. To solve the problem, Israeli scientists now producing a gaggle of hens with all called Golda that are the first in the world to be laying only female eggs. The technology being announced in 2021 with the hatching of the first Golda chicks just months after the initial announcement. And the name? Well, they're being named Golda after the color of the hens and not the late Prime Minister of Israel, Golda Meir, but it's still a nice coincidence. Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight, the forecast calling for scattered showers around the country with an average low of about 11 degrees Celsius or 53 Fahrenheit. And then tomorrow we can expect partly cloudy skies around the board with cooler top temperatures of 22 degrees Celsius or 72 Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from all Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channels on YouTube, Facebook, and Telegram. Subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. And I'm Amit Harari. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.